Welcome to Licking Non-Vanilla, a sex-positive hour of talk about kink, sexual mores, and writing dirty words. So grab a cup of cocoa, your favorite easy chair, and the lube as we go sailing into the dark, sweet waters of all things naughty. On Licking Non-Vanilla with your hosts Ralph Greco Jr. and M. Christian.
You have reached Licking Non-Vanilla, as you sometimes do if you come over here and lick with us. My name is Ralph Greco Jr., I believe, on the crazy East Coast of the United States. And across the aisle from me, but not so far away from my heart, is...
Chris, otherwise known as M. Christian, from the green wilds of Eugene, Oregon.
You know, I heard we're supposed to get more wet stuff this weekend, Chris, more snow, but right now it's beautiful out. I don't know about...
It's actually kind of warm where I am,
okay.
So it looks like winter's kind of on the way out.
Yeah, maybe. Now, right now we can't see her. We saw her a second ago, but I think we can hear her. Sarah, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, so Sarah's there. We're going to talk to Sarah.
I was going to say, I can see y'all just fine.
Well, aren't you the lucky one?
This is like the voyeurist thing. Is like, you can't see me, but I can see you.
Oh, I love this already, Sarah. So that, and I think hopefully, because the program says it's recording her, so, and maybe she'll come back. Anyway, so that's Sarah Sloane that we're talking to. We call her Sarah Sloane, but that goes way back. And Sarah, the first time we spoke to you was with #Open, right?
Yeah. They are still doing great stuff. And, I still peek back into the app periodically to see, who's out there and what new is going on. But yeah, I worked with #Open for a little bit and then decided to take a little break. And now I am in a sadly vanilla day job, but it gives me the freedom to be able to do what I love, which is be able to teach and do my podcast and travel and, be a bon vivant, kinky person about town.
So let's talk about what's the name of the podcast. Tell everybody what the name of the podcast is.
We are a social intercourse podcast. We are a whopping 22 episodes in. And
cool.
We, the thing that I love the most about teaching, and it's not even me teaching, it's about the conversations that happen. And when you get kinky and sex positive people and polyamorous people together, the conversations really sprawl across all sorts of areas. It's not just about who you have sex with or how you have sex. It comes down to, conversations about politics, conversations about mental health, conversations about, we actually just did one on cybersecurity. For queer folks, because, we know that the way that we fuck and the way that we love is a political act. And so, we want to have these conversations, and, 22 episodes in, we're having a great time, and the listeners are super warm and affirming with feedback, and they point us in great directions for new guests. So, that's my little passion project right now.
It's weird. My producer and I were just talking about this before we clicked on with you, that when you were on initially, that show, and we're still, unless you have a reason for this, and I think I did ask you, that show got a spike in Ireland like you would not believe. It was.
I mean, can you tell that I have red hair?
No, I know, but are you a goddess over there? I mean, you're a goddess to us anyway.
I mean, every woman is a goddess, right?
Obvi, but are you a goddess over there for some reason?
No. I spoke with a wonderful podcaster in Ireland and had a great conversation with her. But that's until this past fall, that was the closest I'd ever come to Ireland.
Yeah, it was just, and we were thrilled. I mean, because every so often we'll look at the metrics. Well, my producer will look at the metrics, and you're spiking here. You guys do a good, You know, they love Chris in India. You know, whatever happens to be like, well, they love Chris everywhere.
You know, it's so strange because we have had a couple of times that we've been listed as like one of the top sexuality podcasts in Botswana, which is like, okay, that's super random, and I would love to actually talk to the people. You know, this is kind of the one sad thing about podcasting is that you know that there are people out there, you can see the stats, but you know, I'm curious, like what is going on in your world? What do you want to hear us talk about? So it's very, even though we're having a conversation, it can often feel like we don't know where it's landing, but some of those places where things land, it's like it's just planting seeds. And I want to see the gardens grow up. I want to see, like, you know, who are the people that are listening? What are they doing in their life? What are they thinking about? I'm just totally fascinated. And at some point, you know, when I am a goddess in Ireland and can afford to, you know, pay for some statisticians to do fun stuff, maybe then, you know, we'll be able to dig into, like, what are all of the people that we might not otherwise encounter experiencing as a result of our work?
It's, you know, and like you're saying too, across the board culturally, you know, I don't know. I mean, it is kind of neat to think that what we're doing here right now goes out across the globe. So who knows who hears it and, you know, is crushing on us for some reason or doesn't like us for some reason. But, and I don't know how they couldn't like us because, you know, we have Sarah Sloane on today.
Well, but as writers, don't you periodically feel that as well? You know, your written words. You know, like Chris, I remember, I think the last time I was on with you, I was like, I knew your name way before I knew you because I had read a book, or I had read a story that you had in one of Laura Antonou's books. And so like I already had a mental picture of this person who is the writer, you know, and we always project our own thoughts about what folks do, but you know, it's really cool to be able to almost have a relationship that doesn't necessarily have to be like in the same space. You know, we put something out in the universe and then people come up to us and say, oh, that story, or, oh, that class, or, oh, that, you know, I listened to your podcast and I just, you know, like I had a shitty week and man, I laughed so hard, you know, and those are the kinds of things I think that's like our legacy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I met Chris through writing to him Chris, he had a blog called Frequently Felt, and I would send him stuff, and he rejected me more than he ever accepted me. And then I hadn't met. It took me like another year and a half, I think, to meet him. And you know, that was interesting because, like you said, I had a certain concept of him in my head, and you know, of course he's much more devilishly handsome than you could ever imagine. But
I can see.
Yeah, right. But
he's got that silver fox thing going on, which is very popular with everybody.
I know. It's all I could do just not to just stare dreamily into the screen. But you're right, and we don't know. I mean, I don't know where things land and how they land, and who's listening or hear or reading, and it's kind of nice, you know. Chris sent me when I was doing a bunch of writing at one point, and I hired Chris for this and a whole bunch of people. And Chris, you send me a couple of writers, and he sent me this one really nice lady that I work with, and I finally met her at a kink convention in New Jersey, and she came up to me to say hi. I never met her before, and she introduced herself, and it was really wonderful to meet her. She had been writing for me for about a year and a half, and she said, and it was really nice because she said to me, you know, for that year and a half, you saved my life with that work. And I mean, it was pittance. I wasn't paying her a lot, but it was just enough to get her over the hump, you know? Yeah. And she said, you know, you have no idea how much that helped me. And I was like, man, that's the greatest thing in the world to hear from somebody, you know?
Oh, yeah.
To know you affected their life that way.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Really so I think we do touch a lot of people, you know, in ways we never know, you know? And it's a nice thing because there's people out there like us that we want the connection as well. We wouldn't do this if we didn't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Sarah,
absolutely.
Sarah, what are you working on right now? Like, other than, I mean, you're talking about your day job, but in the world of naughtiness? What are you working on right now?
I'm actually really, really excited. I've been working with the wonderful, amazing people at Crystal Delights for a little bit, and I've known Shelley and Andrew. I've known Shelley for probably 10, 12 years, and it's just really. I think as I've kind of shifted into kind of like the middle of my life, one of the things that's been really important for me is to do work that I'm passionate about with people that I believe in. Right. And, getting a chance to work with somebody who is just so ethically and she's ethically sound. They, but they really do want to create a better world. And, and this is like, you'll hear this from people in the adult novelties. I'm using the official phrase, adult novelties. Right. It's like, there is nothing novel about that 8-inch long plastic penis. Right. Trust me.
Sarah, not in mine and Chris' worlds, there's nothing novel about it, but go keep going.
Let me show you exhibits 1 through 58 that are under my bed that are things that people sent me. And this is the sad thing is you do adult industry long enough and you start having friends who are like, I really don't need any more sex toys. Could you just not send me more sex toys?
Chris, definitely, right, Chris? I mean, how much? No.
Oh, yeah, I have a closet full of them. Are you kidding? It's just like, I can't wait for the landlord to come over and do an inspection and go, it's like, okay, bathroom's okay, kitchen's okay. Go open the closet and it's like 5 feet of sex toys. It's like I mean, I have a problem.
Yeah. It is kind of. I appreciate it, but at a certain point, you're kind of like, unless this does something that I am really not expecting, I'm fairly certain that I can talk to you about how you might want to use this. Like it's not magic. But I'm actually about to go to an adult industry show for the first time in years because A, pandemic, and B, and so I'm really excited about going out there and kind of not just helping Crystal Delights out at the booth occasionally, but also I love to see what people are coming up with in terms of the adult industry, because there's always there's the there's like the mainstream middle of the road stuff, and then you have the polar opposites. You have the stuff that's like, that is so perfect. How has nobody done this before? And then you have on the other side, who even thought that was a thing that was necessary for us to have? And I'm not going to call names on adult toys because I might have to have cocktails with this person next Tuesday. But there are just some that you're just like, who the actual fuck thought of this? And how did it get through any kind of peer review or quality control?
Right.
Which is why I love folks that do the reviews, because put it into people's hands who are not getting paid by the company and see what works. But there's so much amazing stuff that's coming out on the market. I think it's called the Bump It. Are y'all familiar with this?
Chris,
don't know that one.
Chris, what was the thing? That wasn't the thing you showed me the last time?
No, that was a handy or something similar.
Yeah, okay, so that's, sorry.
Baldo.
Yeah.
You said Bump It. He's Baldo. I'm thinking
I just reviewed the
B word was running around my head.
Handy are the people that do the I don't think it's called the Bump It. I think it's called something else. But it is a hands-free way to adapt sex toys. So cool. People who have mobility issues or who have neuropathy. But I love that we're at a place now where we can, we've kind of got the depth in the industry, but we don't have the spread that includes all kinds of bodies. And so the fact that people are actually, that there's a groundswell movement for small creators to really innovate that's kind of the entire adult industry. It's like small creators innovate, and then the big guys, for the most part, are just kind of like, oh, we'll make a version of that. But I love that like small business mindset marketplace that's really about what things could we create to solve problems that people have in relating to their bodies or relating to their sexual partners. And it's not just the quick solution of like, oh, well let's just make yet another vibrator. It's like actually talking to people and talking in a judgment-free, shame-free way about like, what do you wish that could happen? What's missing on the market for you? And people are listening and people are innovating. And so I'm really hoping to see some really amazing innovation. And
that's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I'm really super excited by it.
What is the name of the show actually that you're going?
This is called the Altitude. It's either Altitude Lingerie Show or Altitude Intimate. So I just know Altitude,
okay, cool,
cool. Yeah, it'll be the MGM Grand.
Excellent.
MGM Grand, big,
not the MGM Small, the MGM Grand.
Right. Yeah.
Well, not the MGM Magnum either, but
size isn't everything.
Well, the MGM
size
Magnum
isn't everything, guys.
Yeah, isn't the MGM Magnum with ribs?
No, the MGM. It's the problem with the MGM Magnum is it's really only good for about an hour, and then you just
there you go.
There you go.
MGM Magnum ribbed for your ribbed for her pleasure.
I hate that that's the default for larger size condoms too, because it is like. Y'all aren't sponsored by Trojans, right? Okay, good.
No.
Oh my God, so as a sexual wellness and sexual health educator, I cannot disabuse people of the fact that those are the best ones to save my life. People go for them because, I think part of it is the cachet, because everybody knows if you've got a box of condoms in your checkout aisle basket that say Magnum, people go, oh yeah, I know what you're packing, friendo.
I just like really big water balloons.
Yeah, I was going to say you can get a whole gallon of water.
Exactly.
But they're just, this was one of the things that I loved and also hated when I managed adult retail is people coming in and people with penises who literally had no earthly idea how to get a condom that fit right. And when they would say like, oh, condoms are uncomfortable, we would, it's like, that's a 10-minute conversation if somebody's willing to participate. Of like, well, are you just buying one off the shelf without thinking about it? And then we'd say like, there are actually 100 different lengths and different girths and different shapes. And depending on you, there's probably a couple in there that might work, but you're not buying them because you're buying them.
Let's narrow it down as best as we can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just.
And now they're actually,
I just want to cut in and say where we are. We're at Licking Non-Vanillas. For anybody's just jumping in now, I just wanted to give us a little identification. It's Licking Non-Vanillas, the podcast. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, it's like what's really cool now is we're seeing a lot of companies. There's one called One, and I know Love and Sense. I never know. I write about them all the time. I never know how to pronounce their name. Has released like kind of like pick your own, measure yourself, and then they'll send you a condom to fit. And so, like I said, there's another company called One that did the same thing.
One condoms are amazing.
Where I test drove them once for an article, and I was amazed by it. What's cool about the Love and Sense version, you actually use a smartphone app, to kind of do it, but it's a little, they're still perfecting it, but it's still cool to be able to recognize in the fact that there's, one of the biggest problems about safer sex is not necessarily that people don't do it, but they don't know how to actually buy condoms that are comfortable. Yeah. And so they don't use them. And that's a major issue. But yeah, it's cool. Like all the technology, we're actually seeing really kind of a reinvention of the condom. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's way overdue. I'm personally, just in case y'all want a recommendation, not necessarily for size, but in terms of comfort for the receiving partner, Glide condoms have actually been some of my favorites, and they're vegan, and their larger size is a real larger size condom, and their snug fit is a real snug fit. So they do some good stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there's just, as we get better about not shaming people about their sexual questions, that's really what opens the door up to this. It's like until we're willing to have conversations about like, no, really, this is not the average size of the penis. This is the average size of the penis. You are just fine. Penises come in all kinds of shapes. If you're circumcised or uncircumcised, there are often different choices for you. But you can't have that conversation unless people are willing to kind of come to the table for that without feeling like they're going to be judged.
Well, yeah, that is the crux of it all, because we can't get there until we get there.
Yeah.
Now, going back and forth over the last couple of days, we're emailing each other and things we're going to talk about and all that kind of stuff. This is a very sticky subject in the world today, but it was something you mentioned, and I think it would be worth getting into this. The the laws that are going on in Florida, all that crazy whack stuff, you know.
Ugh, don't get me started.
You know, but I've heard so many different sides of it. I've heard that we're not getting the full story, but from both sides, and this is always the truth, right? You're never getting the full story. But and now I just read something from Disney came out about something. They said something, I don't know, and they were getting some flack. I really, it's it's like anything else, whether it's political, religious, emotional, I don't care what it is. You know, you're searching for the greatest Elton John song. It's all coming at you at 100 miles an hour. You know, and I don't even know what's going on, to tell you the truth. I heard things, and I'm like, I feel like De Niro heard some things. You know. But I don't know where we're going. I don't know what's happening, and I don't want to just willy-nilly throw blame at people, because I don't think that works.
Yeah,
it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. The whole situation is a nightmare.
I mean, it's Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying this is all, think of the children. This is everything that we're seeing right now is think of the children, but it's actually encompassing to me the removal of individual autonomy. When we say that we can't talk to children about the fact of being gay. We're not even talking, like parents are like, they don't want their children to be trained on gay sex. I'm like, nobody's going to train your children on gay sex. For fuck's sake, people. Like, that's not actually how this works.
I think this is the same with banning books. It's the same with, it's like the pendulum swings and it goes, woo, and I'm like, is that really what we're talking about here? Is that what the law is about?
It's a political game. It's a political game is what it is. It's like these right-wing Republicans have found another moral panic. Either it's critical race theory or it's transgender people using the wrong bathroom according to them. They're just finding some way of standing up there and yelling, "Oh my God!" Like you just said, think of the children. It's bullshit. It's based on pure ignorance and bigotry, and it's just infuriating. I mean, it's just absolutely infuriating.
I don't know any of this. I've just heard tinkles of it. And I usually think with this stuff, it seems to be that there's got to be more to this story, and there's got to be. I just know that anytime you truncate anybody's freedom, regardless of what you believe in, right? I don't know. I don't think that's a good thing, right? And I think that's a scary thing, right? And I don't care what your agenda is.
Yeah.
I mean, in Texas, they're trying to get go ahead. No,
I was actually going to talk about Texas too. Texas is specifically saying that if you are providing any kind of supportive care to a trans youth, that you can be reported for child abuse. And I think when we only get our news through the filter of who there's this great point about like who's telling the story and what is it that they're not telling you. Like that's the lens. And when we look at the story through kind of the way that a lot of that media presents it, it's it kind of sets it up for us to think, oh well, children are having genital altering surgery at the age of 8, or the about the don't say gay thing in Florida. It's like they're talking about being gay in like in kindergarten, and they're using that as a scare tactic in order to shore up their own foundation. Right. But the problem is that we've been going through this with the pandemic too. It's like, where is the line between our personal individual freedom and our responsibility to be a safe community member? Like, where's the community care piece in this? Whether or not I think that I need to wear a mask, personally for me, going out with a mask on is showing more care for my community. So I'll do that. That's the metric for me. The metric for other people is that it is more like because of either the community they move in or because of their own decisions, they would make a different choice. And so I think sometimes when we get caught up in like what is the potential harm of these laws, I also saw something that I think it was Iowa recently wanted to ban termination of pregnancies that are ectopic pregnancies, which cannot possibly result in a live birth and often result in the death of the mother. So I think the question that's missing sometimes is, how does this affect the people who are most vulnerable in our communities? When we talk about like abortion access, we know that there have always been people who've been able to get them, whether or not they're legal or not, based on money and privilege. So the people who are being harmed the most are the people without those resources. The people who are being harmed the most in Texas are the people whose parents can't necessarily run the risk of losing custody of their children. So we're basically penalizing the people who are most at risk. And that's the thing that frustrates me. Sorry. And I will, I clearly have big feelings.
Well, no, it's a matter of, I guess, I don't know, but it seems like this country was kind of developed to give everybody a voice. And, and the laws are that way, that everybody has a fair shake. And you can have your opinion, and you can do whatever you want with it. But it becomes law, and then you start truncating people's freedoms. Then and also I always worry about legislation when things are legislated into law. That's the thing Jordan Peterson was against in Canada, was the legislation of language. And he said, I'm not against anything here. I'm just saying I don't want it legislated into language. Yeah. And and then you could be arrested for using the wrong or right language, which is pretty freaking scary. And then people jumped on, well, you're against trans rights. He said that's nothing to do with it. I'm saying about the language. It's just that we have to be talking about this language, but it has nothing to do with how I feel or don't feel about that issue. I just don't want it legislated, and legislation scares the shit out of me. Because the government scares the shit out of me all the time. Because why wouldn't it? So the incompetence is just rampant, and then I also we all know once a law is enacted, it's very hard to get it rescinded, right? Once it goes in, it's very hard to take it away because people get used to it and they go, oh well, yeah, we know what, this is the way it's been for all. Well, we'll just keep going, and we don't realize our freedoms are now being taken away. So we have to be very careful.
There's a tiny bit of good. There's a tiny bit of good news. I just read today in Texas that the attorney generals of many different areas in Texas are refusing to enforce the law.
Okay.
They're refusing to do it. And I think that says a lot about the legality and the ethical question about this, abhorrent, drive to criminalize, trans kids. Is that the attorney generals are refusing to do it, but also I just heard a judge has blocked it. Now it's only a temporary blockage, but the thing is, this has nothing really to do with anything except driving up. Once again, like you said it perfectly, Sarah. You said it's a political tool. That's the only reason it exists. It's not because of any protecting anybody. It's not about doing what is the right thing. It's not about standing up for any kind of right. It's a political game, and these right-wing pricks do it so well because they can pick something like critical race theory, which is not taught in schools, it's taught in law school, and suddenly turning it into this demonic force that's out there going for your children. And it's just infuriating. And when you hear what these people are saying, it's not just a bunch of people sitting around a boardroom saying, yes, we need to protect the rights of. It's these people that are just absolute frothing bigots. Claiming that this is like protecting children from being groomed, or it's, protecting against, sex trafficking. It's just absolute freaking bullshit. And these states are just, just becoming, it's now happening in like 3 or 4 different states. Between, attacking trans kids, it's attacking the right to, health, it's attacking the right to abortion and everything else. And it's all based on this complete hysteria, and it's just absolutely a nightmare.
Most of what we're seeing in the discourse, I would say, in the political arena in the last, maybe 15, 20 years, has been motivated by an ideology on either side. And the problem with that is that you can get stuck there, and you can get emotional about it. as opposed to, like Chris just said, is this lawful? See, that at the end of the day, we have at least, we like to think, we have that to go by, right? We can say, look, is this lawful? And I mean, that's, you got to start there, because that's what we, and you want to change the laws, right? That's what we do all the time, right? We amend and we do all that stuff. But is this lawful, first and foremost? And then the rest of it's in a gray area, because you can say, well, I believe this, I don't believe this, and I don't want this in my laws, but I do, and it's a moral cause, and I whatever. But just start with that first. Is this lawful? And that sometimes, I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but sometimes that'll solve the problem, because you say, well, this isn't the law. You can't do this. This is against the law. And if we don't, and if it isn't, and you're doing it, and you got to move out of the state, or you got to change the law, then that happens too. And that's happened all through the history of the country.
I would actually say that rather than looking at whether it's lawful, we should be asking ourselves what is fair and just to our community. I think the biggest thing that I am taking, or one of the big things that I'm taking out of the experience of living through a pandemic in a community that is very populated with queer, trans, non-binary, and a lot of my friends are people who are immunocompromised or people with disabilities, is that a lot of us dived back into community care in a big way. The ways that the LGBT community survived the 70s and the 80s was people took care of each other because we knew that the world wasn't going to take care of us. People, when I was in my late teens, I went with a friend of mine to hospice for to spend time with gay men who were dying from AIDS that had nobody around them. And there weren't, this was still Reagan era when I was going. So, AIDS didn't actually exist, and it was a plague, and it was attacking the people it should be. But whether or not, whatever the laws were, it comes back to me to how are we compassionate with our fellow humans? And I think that's the thing that it hurts, because I see people talking over top of each other and assuming things that aren't necessarily true. And that's also the place that I think folks like us can have an influence on the discourse by sharing our own stories, by creating a platform for people who aren't like us to be able to share their experiences. One of the things that I'm really committed to with my podcast is to highlight voices of people whose voices would otherwise not be highlighted, and I do think it's really important, let's have somebody on who is asexual, who's going to talk about how that works in their life. Let's have people who are trans and non-binary talk about their lives and their experiences, because that way, hopefully, we can share that, hey, the way that you do things is totally valid for you, and it's also different for everybody. And maybe by sharing those stories, we create more tolerance. I mean, this is my philosophy, and I'm holding on to it because it gives some purpose. You have to feel like what you're doing has purpose. And for me, it's about helping people realize that they are 100% valid and worthy of respect, and their bodies are valuable however their body is. Because I feel like, we start with sex. We start with like, hey, are my fantasies okay? Are the ways that I want to get off okay? Am I enough of a partner or enough of a person? And when we kind of get down to the root of like, oh, that's actually a big piece of self-esteem. It's one of the reasons why I do sex ed, because when I was coming out of my marriage in my late 20s, my ex-husband had lots of opinions about how I wasn't adequate. And when I realized that actually the fantasies that I had were not only shared by lots and lots of other people, but people might find me appealing and want to do those with me. That was a pivotal moment in my own personal self-esteem. And I know that is the thing that happens for a lot of us. And so
I'm sure that's true.
For me, it's like people with really good self-esteem don't want to attack other human beings for not.
Yeah, I think that's generally true. I think that because if that's the case, if you have a pretty good sense of yourself and you're aware, you're relatively you're empathetic, and you probably in your own sense don't want to be fucked with. So you're like, I don't want to fuck with anybody else. Like I don't want anybody fucking with me and telling me anything that I'm doing is right or wrong, whatever.
I mean, we see this at kink events. You know, you get newer dominants that come in that haven't figured out all of the ways that dominance is authentic for them. And they feel like they're supposed to show up a certain way, so that's how they show up.
That's true. That's true.
But then they also look at everything else as like, well, that's not right because that's not what I'm doing. And it's like But you know, eventually, if they stick around long enough and they see enough other people that do it different ways that are all having great consensual fun, you know, they start to go like, oh, well, where's my authentic self in this? And that's when it's beautiful. You know,
you know what happens, Chris and I've seen it happen, you know, because we're so evolved. But we've seen it happen at the conventions where we've said often that there's kind of like this hierarchy almost. Well, that's not really legitimate because it's not that, and I do this, but I don't do it to that degree, so it's not as legitimate as you who do it to that degree. Yeah. And it's all that weird, and I'm like, no, none of that.
For sexual deviance, we are a bunch of judgmental motherfuckers.
I know. Well,
you know, it's like, you know,
human beings are. You know, we that is one of the things we do in order to assess. We do that, right? We unfortunately we judge and we put in spots and we make little clicks and join them or don't join them, and we feel comfortable when we do, and what the whole thing, and we have a bunch of opinions. And what we have to do is try to get over that, right? And just approach somebody before we judge them, which is not, you know, we're all flawed. We all do. I mean, none of us are Jesus Christ, you know? So,
despite what people yell in bed with me, I guess, okay.
Look, that is you know, Chris, did I ever show you how Jesus bites his nails?
No. Come here. Oh, I think I've heard this one. Go ahead, though.
That's a bad one, right?
I have...
My favorite one is Jesus isn't coming. He's just breathing hard.
That's pretty good.
A friend of mine had a T-shirt that says "Jesus loves me, but I still make him use a condom."
I love that. That's great.
It's very old. It's very old. But
you know, he can't eat M&Ms because they roll through the holes in his hands.
Oh, okay. Yeah, somebody out there is getting offended right now.
I know. That's what we're here for.
And to you, gentle listener, I would say, embrace the challenge. Embrace the challenge.
I would say that we're making fun because they ain't nothing bad about that guy if he existed or not. That whole message of love is a great message.
No,
right? Message.
I call myself Satan's hand puppet, so there you go.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like that whole message of loving people, that's a great message, man.
I'm sorry, Chris, you said Satan's hand puppet, and I was just like, I did this hand because that's the hand that I normally use.
Oh, yeah. That's the one you use.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the old joke. It's like when you go to a kinkster and say, make a fist, they do this. You know, so.
We used to say, like, silent duck.
Okay,
yeah, that's how you tell people, like, for fisting, it's silent duck.
Silent duck.
Silent duck. So
that was, that was my Chris. That was my martial arts name.
Silent duck.
Silent duck. Yeah.
See, we need to integrate a martial art and sex. So there has to be like a sexual martial art. That would be one of them. It was like leaping condom and
fisting would be Tai Chi.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Because fisting is such a slow, gentle.
Yeah,
and it is that and doing things like needle play and body modification are probably the two most spiritual of the kink practices that I do, because they both really require this amazing connection and intention.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I got to present for a online educational event called Kink Between the Lines a little earlier this year, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. And the event was specifically geared to people who experience marginalization within the kink community. So there were specifically workshops for people who are autistic. There were specifically workshops for people who are dealing with aging, physical disabilities. My partner and I did one. We co-taught on physical and mental health in power exchange relationships. My partner has a cancer diagnosis. I have PTSD. Sometimes it's like the person who's doing the things is not necessarily the one you would think. But kind of right-sizing that, because those are experiences that if we're all lucky to live long enough, we will all be having disability issues at some point in our lives. And as kinky people, when so much of our self-esteem and our identity comes from what we can do, it's not just the tops. I talked to a wonderful person who said, I want to engage in a relationship as a submissive, but I'm in a wheelchair and I can't use my hands and I don't know what service I could provide. And I kind of walked through like, well, what is it that you do for friends? What is it that you do for work? Because there are 1,000 different ways to offer service. It's just believing that you have something that's worthy of offering and have somebody that sees you as worthy of giving service. Everything else is just the details.
Right.
But yeah, that was such a great event because it reminded me that there's more than just, the physical act of swinging a whip. That it really is, there's so much more subtlety to it that I think, it's like that's not what some of the porn is created to show. But I think this is where stories like Chris, like the, stories that I've read of yours, really kind of touch into the whys and the really soul nourishing parts of doing kink and doing polyamory. It's like, yes, it is great for sex, and also it is amazing for interpersonal connection.
Well, that is true. I mean,
thank you so much.
Should blow smoke up his ass, but it's true. He does do that better than most people I know. He does it 100% better than I do.
Aww.
No, but it's true.
But
for sure.
But I can't thank you enough, and I really can't thank you enough, Sarah, for talking about and bringing up things like disability, aging, all kinds of different issues that just simply are not talked about, and also giving a voice and a place for people to feel safe about discussing that. And it's very true. It's like we just, especially in sex and kink, we have a tendency to just like automatically fall back to this normalization fallacy. That it's unless you are something fill in the blank, then you are we're not seeing you, you're invisible,
right,
or it's something you don't talk about. It's like aging. Like I go through like mobility issues, depression, and all kinds of different issues, but there are things that are often just invisible, and it's really infuriating. And then again, it's like what you're talking about, Raphael, too. It's like we need to be more empathetic. That's what makes this whole situation, going back to what we were talking before about in Texas and Florida, so infuriating. Is like they pretend this is about children, but they don't care about them. They're just political, chess pieces. If they really cared about the kids, they would listen to them and find out what they need. How can we help? As opposed to telling them, or thinking that they're protecting them for some mythical thing, when all they need is to be heard and respected and listened to. And just, a sense of empathy.
I got protected. I got protected outside of the house and abused in the house. So it's not like, it's not so like...
that's the thing, too. And not everybody's got the same story, right? That's the thing. So you have to be sympathetic to the fact that people come at you with a whole bunch of different ways that things are going on,
Yeah, it's the underpinnings of who we are as human beings. And, I think this is one of the things that frustrates me is we refuse to see human beings as sexual beings, and unless certain, certain things happen.
Oh, yeah, like Chris culturally, said. Unless you're falling into this certain category. Absolutely. I
mean,
I think that's,
how many times do you see people who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s in porn? It's there's some.
It feeds to body dysmorphia and all the problems that we do have. Like Chris was saying, the things you have to get over, and that you're just going through yourself, that you don't share them with anybody else, that gets you that hinders your day. And I'm in my case, it's just my incredible wonderfulness is so hard to get over, and tripping over my own ego is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's hell.
But there's a reason for it. So I just have to look. I'm just trying to lighten it up because we're coming to the end.
No,
Here.
but I think so I'll put a little bit of a bow on the package.
Yeah, good. You do that because I'd rather you than me.
I think the one thing though that we are seeing is as these things come up, it causes people to act in ways that are actually uplifting the voices of people whose voices aren't heard. And in this case, we're talking about children. You know, how many people, I don't have kids. Fuck if I want kids. I got a hedgehog. That's about all of the dependent I can handle.
Chris and I don't have kids either. Yeah.
But when somebody tells me that there is a new law that is threatening the ability of children to be respected and heard, that makes me speak out about what, and it makes me look for who are the helpers, to paraphrase, Mr. Rogers, who are the people who are in there that are working to make sure that these children are actually taken care of. And, so it does kind of help us direct our energy in ways that can be very positive. But again, I think some of this is, what are our stories? Most of us grew up different as kids. What is my story as a kid who's been abused? What is my story as a woman who's had an abortion? I tell those stories because hopefully if enough of us share our stories, we take away the stigma and we take away the shame.
Absolutely.
It's like what happened with gay marriage. It's like, it's really hard to be against something when the nice gentlemen who live 2 doors down always come up and shovel your sidewalk in the winter. When there's a face to it, and there's a kind face that you've already got a little bit of trust in, that's showing you like, actually that thing that you were told isn't true.
That's true.
So the value of our voices is incredibly important right now.
Well, we value yours very much, and we value yours very much today. See how I wrap that up?
How have we been already talking this long? I run my mouth so fucking much.
No, you don't. No.
No.
Very, very valuable and substantive. Okay. Sarah, you're traveling tomorrow, so have Godspeed, as they say. Enjoy the weather.
Look, y'all fly Southwest ever? I have I have boarding position A3 tomorrow.
Good for you.
Oh, wow.
And they're serving alcohol.
Yeah, it's great.
I had to use my fancy schmancy travel card to
Good for you,
say
man.
like I'm the big boss. They're serving
and that's really worth it these days.
Alcohol on Southwest flights again.
Okay.
So
oh dear.
So Mama's gonna have a little drinky.
How long is that a flight for you?
It's 3 hours. Pretty much everything in the United States is 3 hours
not
from
too
where
bad.
I'm at.
Yeah, I know. No matter where you go. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 hours ain't bad.
No, it's not bad.
That's
Sarah,
like one good whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's how we can judge the time. And Sarah, enjoy your time out there.
I will.
And we've enjoyed you very much. And real quick, tell people how they can find you. What's the addresses and the URLs and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to write it up for us.
You can find all of my information at my rarely updated website, which is Sarah Sloane with an E, .net. Our podcast is called Social Intercourse with Sarah Sloane, and you can subscribe to it pretty much any dang where that you can subscribe to podcasts. The link is also on my website. And we're on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks and all of the way that these kids connect these days.
These kids today. These kids with their interweb.
These
kids with their interwebs.
Oh my God. So somebody told me the other day, they said he was making a joke for students, and he said Al Gore did not invent the internet, and somebody said, "Oh, I thought that's where the term algorithm came from."
Oh man, that's great. That's great. That's great. I love that. That's good. Very good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Sarah.
Absolutely.
It's been a delight. The second
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Sarah. It was wonderful.
Yeah, anytime, guys. And maybe y'all can come join me on my podcast for an evening.
We would love it.
I would love to.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh.
I will crack the calendar open.
Anytime. Okay, this has been Licking Non Vanilla with me, Ralph Greco Jr., and over there with
Chris, otherwise known as M. Christian.
And our wonderful guest today was Sarah Sloane. We call her Sarah Sloane. Anyway, we'll see you soon, kids. Bye, my little droogies, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Take this off, Mark.
Bye.
And visit us on the web at www.lickingnonvanilla.com.